Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. It's nice to have you, and it's such a beautiful day. Really, the weather at this year's film festival, I have nothing to do with it, but I'm very thankful that it's been so great. And whenever people would come indoors to be sitting in a dark theater or here at the panels, they can also go back out and enjoy the sunshine. My name is Meira Blaustein. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Woodstock Film Festival, which is now in its 18th year, and thrilled to see you guys here. Thank you for being here. I want to take a moment and thank some of those who keep us going. The Woodstock Film Festival is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and as such, it relies solely on those who support it, whether they're individuals or companies or foundations or people like you who are ticket buyers. Thank you for that. So I want to thank our founding sponsor, Marketech, as well as BMI and WDST. Those were with us from year one and haven't left, and we would like them to stay with us for, well, maybe 18 years more, at least. I won't be here, but hopefully they will be. And also I want to thank 120dB Films Company and Kettle One Vodka and Heineken and Grey Krause Entertainment Law Firm and Gigantic Pictures and the Dutch Consulate and everybody who supports us, New York State Council for the Arts. And lots of individuals. So thank you all very, very much. And if you would like to join them and help us grow from year to year and at least reach our 20th year, which is in 2 years from now, please know that we'll be very appreciative of that. And all contributions are tax deductible. After today, I hope that you'll stay here. We have 2 more wonderful panels. One of which is the next one is going to be with writer, actor, director Rebecca Miller, and also we're showing some really great films at the festival. So come and enjoy. It's the last day, so catch some more things. And this morning panel is one of my favorites, and a favorite of a lot of Woodstockers throughout the years. We've been doing it really from year one. It is always moderated by our celebrity, Martha Frankel. And this year, Martha will be talking to Bill Pullman, who last night received the Excellence of Acting Award at the Woodstock Film Festival. He's an amazing actor, and he has a film here that he starred in called The Ballad of Lefty Brown, and for those of you who have seen the film yesterday, you know what an incredible performance he gave in it. It's really quite outstanding. So it is with great pleasure that I'd like to invite to the stage here Martha Frankel and Bill Pullman. Come on in, guys.
Oh, good morning. Nice to see you all. This is always the most fun day of the year. Steve and I have been watching, for a month, we've watched a Bill Pullman movie every night, so it's just been a joy.
It was a science experiment.
But we saw him the other night, and Steve said, "Hey, there he is," like he was our best high school friend. But that's sort of what it feels like. But I just want to say, if you haven't seen Lefty Brown, is it playing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should go see it. It's terrific, really terrific movie. And Bill's great in it. And so I want to go through some of your movies and talk about them because, they're just iconic. And I spoke to somebody who in 1985 went to the Mark Tapper Theater and saw you playing in some Russian film and said, "Oh, that guy's going to be in Ruthless People." Ellen Chenoweth, the casting director, is one of my best friends, so I spoke to her yesterday.
Oh my
and I said, "What did you see?" And she said, I don't know. She said there was a tank on stage and it was Russian and it wasn't good. But when I looked at Bill, I thought, that guy could play a really handsome, dumb guy. And we watched and we howled with laughter. So what was that like? What was it like being in Ruthless People? Because that movie is so wacky.
It was wacky, yeah. But Ellen Chenoweth, who cast that,
She said she would be here, but she's with her husband at his high school meatloaf dinner or reunion, but she said it's just a meatloaf dinner.
but it's testimony of how we've endured, because now our youngest son is an actor, and he came home one day and said, "I just met Ellen Chenoweth."
She told me. She
so
said he's terrific.
Good that people can stay around. It was a play that I thought was rather good. And it was an interesting play by Bill Master Simone, who wrote The Wool Gatherers, a bunch of other plays. But this one was about the Russians in Afghanistan. And
wow, when nobody knew where Afghanistan was
They
here.
didn't know. Yeah, it was 80, 85. And I had been in New York as a theater actor for 4 years, and then he had recommended me to this director, and said, "Oh, it's opening up the Los Angeles Theater Center." So it wasn't at the Taper Forum. She got so many things wrong about that, but
No,
she
no.
got the main
Excuse me.
point.
I probably got everything wrong. She probably got it right.
Okay. But it was a little bit like a B movie. So maybe that's why she thought the play was weird.
I think the tank was what threw her.
The tank was wild, yeah. We pull into the stage, but it's like one of those things like you have at Halloween when you're inside the bowl or something. You have to kind of squat and move it with your feet, because we didn't have any kind of engine or anything. So we were like this, and then that's the opening scene. The tank, the hatch comes open, and out comes Philip Baker Hall. I don't know if you... A very excellent actor. He played the kind of crusty old Russian commander. It was really like we were GIs, but with Russian uniforms. But and then out comes me as the lieutenant, and I had dyed my hair blonde to be this kind of Lithuanian version of Russian guy, and then later when we were. I don't know whether whatever truth she wants is fine.
We don't care. We don't.
Because I think it was later after the play that I was, because I thought, I'll stick around L.A. and see if I can. I'm getting some auditions for this money-making thing, TV parts and movie parts and things, and I didn't realize I went up for a part in Ruthless People, and the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams, 3 directors on that. And I was reading for a certain part, and they were, you kind of think, I've got this. I know where I'm going to make them laugh with a little sly thing. And they're laughing before that and after that. And I thought, this is not going well. And then they called me back into the room. Ellen called me back in, and they really like you and want you to read for this part, who happened to be the dumbest man on the face of the earth. So I realized why they were laughing at me. But it was because, and then when I get the part, and they say she calls the agents and says he has the part, but he has to keep his hair exactly the way it is with the roots, because my hair was growing out, and I didn't even realize that roots are something to be embarrassed about. It makes you look dumb in those days. Now we're all doing it, and everybody's loving the roots. And, yeah.
They're laughing at you again.
Yes.
Okay, but then you played our favorite part. I have to say that in our house there are some iconic movies. We watch Men in Black over and over, but Spaceballs is one of our movies, man. We love it. And my husband wanted me to see Star Wars again. I had seen the first one. I've never seen the rest. And he said, please see it with me again before the new one comes out, number 90 or something. So I said, okay, and we started watching it, and within 15 minutes, we were on the floor laughing because now we cannot tell the difference between Star Wars and Spaceballs, except Joan Rivers is in the good one. That's the way we see it. So talk about Lone Star. It's such a great character.
Yeah, that was something. That this is the 30th anniversary year. When it came out as 87, and it was, you know, for me, who had done this small part in Ruthless People, to be cast by Mel Brooks in the studio movie, and he had his offices on 20th Century Fox, even though it was an MGM movie, but we went into his offices to do rehearsals, and, you know, we'd walk into the commissary. Daphne Zuniga and I were the only ones who would come in for rehearsal. John Candy and Rick Moranis wanted to, no, we'll show up on the day, you know, but Mel wants to get going early, you know, and he knows we're at his beck and call, and we'd go in there, and he'd go through the lines, and then we'd go to lunch, and you'd be moving through all these tables in this commissary, and it was like a dream, because there's Jane Fonda, and, you know, we stop, and Mel knows everybody. It's like his bar mitzvah or something. You know? Really, just like saying, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's making Schwarzenegger laugh, and then he's off and on to the next person, you know, and it just was kind of amazing experience. And then the movie came out, and it was mixed reviews. The critics thought this was not the best Mel Brooks, and you know, it'll be a lesser work of his and everything. But 30 years later, the thing is kind of probably his most watched movie.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there are moments in it that we just watched it the other night because we've been on the, you know, we've been working backwards. So Ruthless People was the last movie we watched, which was kind of fun to see you age in reverse. I don't know why we did it that way, but we did. Yeah. But when we watched Spaceballs, I mean, there are things in there that you forget that Daphne wears those headphones that have Princess Leia's curls, you know, Danishes on them. I never noticed it before. I never got what was so funny about it. So, yeah, do people recognize you from that? Do kids recognize you? I know my friend Jeff is here, and he drove you around yesterday, and he didn't say anything about that because we've watched that movie endlessly with his kids. And
yeah, I think it's because you know, it was in the time before VHS. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you went to the movie theater and saw it once, and then it went away, and it wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't a classic or anything, so I kind of forgot about it, like 5 or 6 years afterwards, or you know, just wasn't thinking about it. And my wife Tamara had her cousin visiting us in L.A., and we were having dinner or something, and somehow I made some reference to like something. Oh, that something reminded me of that movie Spaceballs, and the cousin said, "Can we talk about Spaceballs?" And that I said, yeah, and he knew every line that I said, and he was reciting my lines that I didn't even remember saying. It was real, because the VHS had come out by the 90s, you know, it was in the 90s, I guess, by the time VHSs started to appear, so he could watch it again and again, and then I realized, oh, this is going to be around for a little while.
So then you started getting some more serious roles, which is great. The Accidental Tourist. Talk about that film.
Yeah, that was, it was good to kind of get, to tell you the truth, I really didn't have an image of myself as a film actor, because I started in the theater, and in New York, before I went to LA, it was all about really intense dramas. And I did kind of a good chance to do Sam Shepard play Curse of the Starving Class. Mm-hmm. And Kathy Bates played my mom. She doesn't like that part now. But it was a really, we started it in a 33-seat theater and eventually did it in the New York Times, reviewed it, and it was, this guy is good. And I had other parts that were kind of like that. And so then when all my friends went to see me in my first movie, the first appearance is me coming out of the covers with Anita Morris going, and me coming up with a hairdryer and saying, it doesn't get any better than this. And they just couldn't believe that my career, because all the people, had led me to this moment. And I thought, wow, and I was thinking, this movie stuff is a lark. I'll get back to the theater and things will settle down, but so then have the next thing be a big comedy, and everything. And I remember there was a little disconnect with a lot of people. Like, what are you doing out there? What's going on with? So to get a chance to do Accidental Tourist was, really a chance to be amongst some very good actors, with Bill Hurt and Gina Davis and Kathleen Turner, and we did rehearsals, which I never had done before, and not often have done afterwards. But it was Larry Kasdan's idea of how to pull an ensemble together, and we really dealt with very, what was really small and well observed kind of moments, and so it was kind of good to get back into it with Accidental Tourist.
So then there's like a little blip in in 1990. There's like a lot of stuff going on, but we didn't watch any of it. No, but blood drips heavily on Newsies Square. That was in there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we didn't watch that. But we did watch A League of Our Own.
Martha, that's a very popular movie.
I bet.
I didn't realize that the musicals are not your fave.
No,
yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
But then we got to A League of Our Own, which it was just, I was on the set for 10 days during the baseball scenes, and it was incredible. And watching it again and seeing you with Gina, and just an amazing movie, amazing, stands up better now than it ever did. What was that like? I mean, you weren't in it a lot. You were in the war, you were busy, and then you came home, and your wife was, a great catcher. But what was it like filming that movie with Penny?
Yeah, Penny Marshall, and it was a strong movie about something that really hadn't been observed very much, and such a fascinating locations. All these ballparks in the Midwest and Indiana, where we were shooting most of it. We started in Chicago and then went around Indiana in these small places, and I didn't have scenes in them, but I would come around getting ready for my scenes, and Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna and all these people are around for.
I remember thinking this is some cast, but watching it, seeing Rosie and Madonna and how relaxed and funny they are, and it's an amazing film. It stands up so well.
It's so when you have your little corner of a movie like that, what I remember are my anxieties. And because I realized, okay, he was in the war and he got shot in the foot. So I had spent a little time thinking about a limp. And now I'm going to forget the DP's name, but it was the foreign... Nyquist, Sven Nyquist. And so we came into a hotel room. I was in a hotel in Chicago, and we were going to meet for a rehearsal and a read-through up in a room. And so I show up in the room thinking about my limp and that where I'm going to be really good with it. And then I realized that Sven came in the room, and he was limping. And I thought, oh, no, is he going to think I'm parodying him or what? Because I kind of needed to limp a little bit all day just to kind of make sure I was inside it. And I had a little a little vague limp that I was kind of keeping in my pocket, really, so just to kind of keep me energized with the limp. And then I realized that Tom Hanks had adopted a limp for his character. I thought, this is weird. But and if you notice, Tom has a little limp in it.
Yeah.
But nobody, by the time the movie's over.
Because he had a bad knee.
Yeah. And so we were all limping.
Gina, that's why Gina looks so tall.
That's
And hold on, I'm going backwards here. I have my notes backwards. I want to talk about Sommersby. A lot of people didn't like that movie, but I loved it. I love that movie. And I always wish that either Jody or Richard Gere come here one day, and so I could talk to them and make me act out one of the scenes. But I printed it out in case you want to do it with me later. You could.
Oh my
You could
God.
have it's short and it'll take a second, but you could have either role. So keep that in the back.
Whoa. This Woodstock is crazy.
Thank you. So you made Sommersby. I just think that movie is so crazy. Guy goes away to war and he comes back. He went away, he was terrible. He comes back, he's fabulous. She falls in love with him, but she didn't love the husband. Oh, it's just so great. It's just so great.
Yeah.
And you know that it's not him. You're like the one person who's like saying that is not Jack Sommersby. So what was it like filming that?
Well, that's based on that good French movie, and there was a lot of. It's quite a good movie, the French version, and I remember at that point I thought, well, talking to John Emile, who was the director, that you start in on these things and you talk about character, and it seems like you're kind of all on the same page, that there's a lot of respect for your character. Usually the director kind of starts with that, like, oh, if Jodie Foster's character is here, her husband hasn't been there for a long time, you've been attending to her, helping to get her farm going, and you have a limp.
Thank God.
Yeah. All right, here I am with the limp. That's fine. I don't mind. Nobody else limping, right? I've got my own turf. And then, that's it. But you're a really good man, but you're a little religious, but, you have principles, and you're a good man, and, would have been a good choice. But then along comes Richard Gere claiming to be the husband, and I said, okay, so it's like a triangle. Great. Got my things. And then I go for the costume fitting, and I said, this coat is really short on my arms. And the costume designer said, yeah, John wants it that way. Really? It looks weird. And I go, oh, that's something weird that he's thinking, okay. And then he shows me the hat. I go,
The hat.
This hat has a tall crown in it. It's almost like a dunce cap. And I realized he had sandbagged me, He gave me all this baggage that was going to take me down as a character. And then before you know it, I'm like giving her a speech about the worms are going to rot your soul. It turned, but it was, really interesting. But I often think about how film can exist, without agreement between the participants. You can have two different ideas about what the scene is about, and still it'll play, because clearly in the discussions beforehand, Jodie believed that she looked at him and pretty quickly made the decision it's not her husband, but she's not going to talk about it. And Richard announced that he thought that she looked at him and didn't realize that it wasn't her husband.
Wait. This sort of explains everything, doesn't it? This is it.
Isn't it crazy? And I remember sitting there, kind of like the third party, by now with my dunce cap in the corner of the room, and listening to John Emile, British guy, being very diplomatic, trying to talk them to the same place and trying to see why maybe we should try some rehearsal where you kind of, they never backed off their separate positions. And then you watch the movie and it's a mystery, who's thinking what and what do they really know. So maybe, I guess it's not important to have agreements.
When we do the scene later, you'll know.
My gosh.
It's perfect. It's just perfect.
Yeah. We rehearsed with French kissing, Martha.
It's a scene between them. Well, okay. If we
Opportunist.
have to, Talk about Sleepless in Seattle, because your role in that is just great. And everybody, like when I said, I was doing Bill Pullman, they said, he had to sneeze through the entire Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, that was the period of a lot of baggage on characters. But though I first read that and I thought, I don't know, this guy is, I didn't feel like, I was feeling like I was a contender, like for her heart, and I had done Sommersby, and I felt like, I kind of not up for this again, and said no to doing the part. And then Meg Ryan got back in touch and said, no. It's because you don't understand. This is really like Philadelphia story, where Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant are both wooing her, Katharine Hepburn, and that they're equally, one or the other would be fine for her, and you just don't know who she's going to end up with. Did not turn out that way. I was sneezing and I was, being awkward.
You weren't even in the running.
Not even in the running, no. But that was Nora, really making it quite funny. Plus, was another learning experience because the really tempting part about the role was a very long and interesting Nora Ephron-esque thing that I said to Meg in the Rainbow Room when she had told me it's not going to work out. And it was a really self-effacing kind of confession of Walter's about how, that as much as he really thought that she was the girl of his dreams, that, of course, how would you build a lifetime together of joy and happiness and everything if you had any doubts about it? And Walter confesses that he himself, would rather feel pain now than later to discover all. It was a beautiful long speech and everything. Cut from the movie because it comes very late in the movie, and they have their own pace of how they're getting together and everything. And but I remember even thinking when I was doing it, I thought, everybody's saying how nice this speech is and how good it is and everything, but it's a little long and it's a little late in the movie. And sure enough, it was cut down and everything. But it was a great experience to do the movie, and Nora ultimately really gave me a sense of respect for Walter, because she did a thing that no director's ever done before since, which was at the first read-through, she would put a book on at your place that she had personally picked out for your character.
Oh, really? So what'd you get?
I got Mornings on Horseback. Do you know that
No.
McCullough biography of Teddy Roosevelt, who had asthmas? And, and I thought, that's a great kind of empowering thing to read a book about another guy with asthmas who did pretty well in the world,
And a limp.
Ah, yes, that's right. She was after me.
What about The Last Seduction?
The
That's one of the
last-
craziest movies
Isn't
ever
that
made.
crazy? Yeah, yeah. I thought that was such a good script. You know, the guy Nick Benizoff or something like that, and I just ran across that because sometimes you think, oh, well, this is the start of a great career. This guy's going to be writing
Yeah,
a
what
lot of
happened to
movies.
him?
He's teaching in Arizona, and in Arizona State or something like that. And I just ran across somebody who told me he was friends with him, and you know, he just had a bunch of kids right away while he was writing that, and the movie, you know, was kind of a sleeper. It didn't really it gathered like a year or two afterwards, but he just made the decision that he needed to get some solid job for his family and everything, so he took a teaching job. But it was a really interesting movie for me because John Dahl, who directed it, had been a student of mine when I taught at Montana State University. You know, when I finished graduate school, I was in Montana, and I got hired to teach there for ended up being 2 years. And John was a film student at Montana State's film program, which is a pretty good program. And then he had taken a class in directing theater from me. And then he went down to L.A. I was in L.A. and I kind of lost track of him and everything. And then next thing I know, here's Last Seduction. He's directing it, and he wants me in it. So that was really good. And I've done another movie since, which is You Kill Me, which was with Ben Kingsley, and John directed that as well. You didn't see that one, Martha?
No, I know.
Thank
I'm looking
God.
at you blankly.
Yeah. God, I've been saying I've done over 60 movies for like the last 10 years, and then somebody at this last festival said, it's 90, Bill.
Yeah, 90. We had to choose.
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp. We chose that.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
What about that?
Well, that was a, you know, I love Westerns, and I had been, you know, there was a lot of movies that I did because of reasons other than, oh, this is good for me to play a starring role. This is a supporting role in a big Western with a lot of other people, but I just wanted to be in it, and I had worked with Larry before, and it was I was the Ed Masterson with Tom Sizemore. It was Bat Masterson, and so we would come and go on Southwest Airlines to Albuquerque, where we were shooting, and you know, it was a big movie, and they would have changes in the schedule and different things. But Tom and I would travel over there, and we'd hang out for a little while, and we'd hear reports of how it's going on the set and things like that. You know, so we started to think of ourselves as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yep.
And you know, I think I think I can say embarrassing things here.
Oh, yeah. You could.
Yeah.
This is a very friendly crowd. You
Yeah.
can say whatever you want.
And it's Woodstock, and we're doing crazy things
It's
afterwards
just us.
anyway. So yeah.
Exactly.
But I got snagged a little bit because Tom, you know, is in those days pretty much of a party animal and afraid of flying. So he would insist that I'd get to the Burbank airport about a half hour before we were to really be there, and we'd sit at the bar and he'd calm down and everything. And I think you know, one time when we were doing it, it seemed like, oh, you know, we're going in today, but we don't work today. We work tomorrow, and there, you know, maybe we still haven't gotten our call time, so I'll have two. You know? And then next thing you know, it's like, wow, this is a heck of a flight going on here. You know, they're really weaving and everything, but Tom's like, I'm not afraid of flying now. And you know, we get off the plane, and you know, we're shaky. And there was a Samoan driver. You know, they have Samoans there. I don't know how they ended up being on the Transpo crew in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but there they were. And there was a guy go, we go to set. And Tom and I were like, no, we don't go to set. And he goes, yes, scene 80. And scene 80, Tom, Jesus, what's going on? And we're really weaving, and we're talking a lot about, holy Jesus, what are we going to do? We got to get some, we got to get, stop the car, because we were in this big van, and it was snowy out, and we just got out of the car, and we started putting snow on our face, and we were like really, really nervous about this, because it was hard to get out of the car. Oh, God, and we get to the set, and all of a sudden, the ADs are there, and they're going, you're going right to catering. And catering? and they had mashed potatoes, because they had gotten word over the walkies that we were bombed. And we were like, holy jeez, yeah, mashed potatoes, good. And we get into our wardrobe, and it's a scene in which Kevin Costner is kind of like schooling us, about different things, which is good. We don't have a lot of talking, but we're kind of listening and nodding. And I can remember that in the moment, Tom had decided that his best strategy was to lean against this kind of hutch that was there. And he went to reach for it, and it was a little further away than, and had this little moment. And if you watch this scene in the movie, it's in there. It's not as long as it was, because he had quite a thing, but it's just a little thing that he does, this little hitch. And we made it through scene 80 somehow.
We'll have to go back and watch it again.
Starting to feel like, wow, what a weird career. It's a lot of strange events.
So then you play another love triangle, but this guy's in a coma.
Yes.
The other guy
Yes.
in While You Were Sleeping. So, it's a terrific movie. You're terrific in it. Sandy Bullock is fantastic. The chemistry between you guys is terrific. What was that like? Tell me you hated her. It's okay.
No, that was, I guess, what was the other? Oh, I had done Malice and Sommersby and Sleepless in Seattle. And somewhere along in there, some critic starts, it starts like with a little canary saying something, and then before you know it spreads, and, oh, he's the guy that didn't get the girl. And then they started talking about Ralph Bellamy, and I go, who's Ralph Bellamy again? I'm supposed to be Ralph Bellamy? And then I see all these movies from the 30s in which Ralph Bellamy never got the girl, and was, not the most, enviable part, but he worked a lot, and I thought, oh, maybe that's me. I don't know. But then I think, that's not really fair, because, Sommersby is, a southern accent, a weird character who's a little demented. Sleepless in Seattle, he's, very different kind of East Coast effete a little bit, but still kind of has his own gentle charm. And then Malice is where I'm married to Nicole Kidman, and then I realized that she has got something to do with this doctor played by Alec Baldwin, and then I realized in the second act that I've been kind of conned a little bit, and I pull a big switcheroo on her, and she ends up getting arrested, and so in a way I did get the girl. I got her good. But so they all seem like different movies to me, but and then I realized, and also because it was like at that point in my career, I was really glad to get second male lead. First male lead was already established people like Tom Hanks or Richard or somebody, and I thought, that's the next best part, isn't it? And I realized, sometimes not so, But I enjoyed doing them all. But anyway, I thought, oh, this is a stigma. I got to figure out what's going to turn this around. And then, fortunately, While You're Sleeping came, and I realized this is good. This good timing, and don't have to carry that shackle around anymore. But the script was a light script, and I remember meeting John Turteltaub, who is quite a charming guy and quite a clever guy. And he said, and he got with Sandy and I in a room we were shooting in Chicago too. And he said, we're going to have to play this. The three of us are going to have to get together on this because the studio does not want us to change this script. And the script is a little bit flat. And we're going to have to, be really ready to go any direction we want with the scenes and everything. And it's just going to be the three of us because it's going to happen maybe 20 minutes before we start shooting. You're going to figure out what your lines are because these lines aren't going to be it. I thought, whoa, this is wartime. And sure enough, I remember particularly a really contentious scene with the studio was the walk and talk that Sandy and I had alongside the outside on the river and everything, and they did not approve any drafts. And John just said, I'm stopping sending them stuff because they're just saying no. Wait, and so we get there and we're in the makeup trailer getting the lines that we had to say, and I thought, oh, that's okay. She's like a whip, so smart and so capable, and yeah, good. Let's get the words. Come on, Pullman, let's run them. And I thought, good, yeah, we got the words. But then I was totally unprepared for the fact that we had established wardrobe in a warmer weather. And
it's very funny. I know exactly. You're walking along the river in Chicago in the winter in like a really nice spring jacket.
Yeah, a little windbreaker or something, And Chicago does not, it laughs at windbreakers, there's all the caverns of concrete and they're and I'm trying to make cute, Jeez. When my thighs had gotten on my wife, I know I think it was the coldest I'd ever gotten in my life. And it took 3 days of hot baths before I really lost the sense. I had this sensation that the front side of my thighs had gone numb. And Chicago can do that to you. But we made it. We made it through.
Yeah, it's great. It's a year later when you do Independence Day and play President Whitmore. And, I'm a girl. I didn't love Independence Day, but I know a lot of people do. So what was that like, being the president?
In a movie not liked by girls?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I could be wrong. I
She
was
already
wrong once
kind of
before.
colored the discussion a little bit.
No, I don't know. Although a lot of women said to me, "Oh, he was so great in Independence Day." So I'm wrong. I don't like loud movies like that. But
Yeah.
I like when you're limping.
That's right.
More my thing.
That's right. Well, yeah, it was, that. Oh, $5.
That was mine.
That's for you for afterwards, Martha. No, I understand. I think it was a crazy. I still think. I was so much thinking this movie career is just a big adventure. Everything was coming. It just came as such interesting things, and when that movie came up, it was science fiction, and I haven't been a huge science fiction fan. I'm not necessarily, that's my choice either. But there was something about the movie that felt like a lot of fun. There was, there's dire circumstances with the aliens and everything, but there was a certain kind of human brio or something that was, bravada, and the characters had attitude, and there was, an undauntedness to it, and I thought this would be good when I finally read the script. But when they first offered it to me, they said, it's the President of the United States, and at that point in my life, I just thought, it must be a comedy. I just couldn't. And then they said, no, you're really the President of the United States. And oh, wow. Don't know if they got the right guy. Because up until that time, really a lot of movies that had the president as a character was subordinate, to kind of like giving some aspect of the, usually his underlings were undermining him, and you saw the president in kind of silhouette, and you didn't recognize who it was, or, the president. There just wasn't this idea that the president could be the center character of a movie, like a hero in a movie. And, after Independence Day, I'm not saying it was my performance, but there were quite a few presidential movies, Harrison Ford, about, Michael Douglas, and trying to catch up to me, But, so it all was, ended up being, and I did go to the Nixon Library, had cufflinks with the presidential insignia, and I remember thinking, anybody could feel like the president with these cufflinks. They're very nice. And I did say to Roland, I said, I'm okay with the president thing. That's all right. But I just want to make sure, some of it isn't what I do. It's like how everybody treats me. And so, I'm coming in with my stuff, but you got to make sure. I said, to me, it feels like every time I think about it or watch, whatever conversation is happening with the president in the room has to be triangulated to the president. Like whatever is said, you got to clock to make sure the president's okay with that, because you don't want, these staff people talking to each other and not including you. Little did I know we'd come to this administration where that's all that happens, and then you get the Twitters. But this was before all that, and he of course understood that, and I think it felt like by the time I saw the movie, it felt like we were, had reality for the president.
Cool. And then you did Lost Highway and The End of Violence in 1 year.
Yes.
It was a good year.
Yeah, two very different directors, but David Lynch and Wim Wenders. Yeah, it's really and David is quite was an intoxicating person. Is an intoxicating person to be around because he is so. There's a little bubble inside of him that keeps everything he says is so kind of ironic and fun, and everybody on the set is so happy to be working on a David Lynch movie and everything, and there's a certain kind of wry joy that you keep writing while you're doing your day. And he would say things like, all right, camera down, we have problems technical. And just everything had quotes around it, It's, Bill, you're walking down a hallway. And so the way he would say hallway, I thought, I don't want to go down there. He did have a good thing, though, with me. We had a kind of a shorthand, because he doesn't like psychology. He does not want to, say, anything like my character's motivation, or it's just like you could be reading from a technical manual when you start talking. He just kind of blanks out and waits for you to finish. But he's very specific. So he comes from art school, so he would have imagery and things like that. And I remember when I was walking down the hallway in the Fred Madison house, And it was quite, elaborate thing. He was doing very interesting things with the camera with Peter Deming, where you would normally keep your lens on the camera body like tightly attached, and they had detached it. And at a certain point, as they're moving into the darkness, they just took the lens case and floated it away from the camera. So suddenly the camera's shooting without a lens. And I think, that was part of what makes that blackness so spooky, and he was doing things like that. And then he gets me, and he's on me coming in, and he goes, "All right, Bill, you're walking in the hallway, and it's getting dark, and things are out there. And all of a sudden, it goes kabuki." And I was like, "Gotcha."
Finally.
Yeah. Very thrilling to work with him. Yeah.
Then we watched Lake Placid and Broke Down Palace.
Oh, yeah.
Those are good movies.
Lake Placid, yeah, which was with Bridget, who I really enjoy. I love Bridget Fonda, and I had also done singles with her, and we had done a lot in that movie.
Wait, you had?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Singles. I think I had done singles then.
Okay.
Well, before that.
Hey, you're the boss here. Yes, you had.
Yeah.
Yes.
90
right
movies.
Before
Martha.
Sommersby.
But so we had a connection and everything, and she is, and Brendan Gleeson and Oliver Platt, very good. There was a little bit of a feeling like it was an old-time movie with a weird twist, because David Kelly wrote it, and he normally wrote television, and this was kind of a weird lark and everything. And, you think, wow, one of the most memorable things of that movie is Betty White and her foul mouth. And, it's so surprising that she speaks that way about everything. And she was uncomfortable with it. And I remember this director was Steve Miner, and I was on set when she was, I don't need to say those words. And Steve Miner and everybody was like, it's kind of funny. And, you want to try one? And, I don't think I want to try one. Thinking, oh no, this is going to be an impasse. And then, I'll try one. And she let it rip. And, she had that moment. I've had that moment where you've done something and everybody's like laughing a lot, and you're wondering, is this political? Are they trying to trap me into doing this more? I don't know if I buy that laugh and everything. But she must have made the decision, I'm going with it, and then it ended up being so memorable.
So I'm going to talk faster because we're getting towards
Okay,
the part
yeah,
where they get to talk.
So many
hold on.
tangents.
I have to talk about the stuff you've been doing this year because we watched The Sinner, which is a TV show, like a seven episode TV show. Yeah, the people who like it love it. And I will say it's a great role. You're terrific in it. Jennifer Beals is fantastic. The chemistry between you guys is great. I couldn't watch the last three. I am so scared of what's going to happen, of what we're going to find out in that I can't do it. And Steve keeps saying, we're going to watch The Sinner. I'm like, nope, we are not, because there's something so sick going on. It's like this there's this undercurrent of like S&M or something. I don't even know. It's beyond me, and not too many things are. So talk about making that.
Well, Martha, I did have to sign a nudity clause, and it's been a while. I remember when I just would, in the nudity clause.
Yeah.
But no, this one, like, wow, the nudity clause. And so, yeah, you probably shouldn't watch the last three.
If you do this with me, I'll watch the last three. So what was it like working on that? Because it's a really wacky show. I mean, it's about a woman who on the beach one day just gets up and kills somebody in a really violent, brutal way. And then it unravels to why she did it. And your character is a detective who has the craziest relationship with the woman who works at the diner. I don't even know what to say. Like, we didn't understand it the first one. We were like, what happened there? What are they doing? What are the oranges about? So,
Yeah. Somebody drops some oranges. I pick them up. Seems innocent.
It seems innocent. So before I watch the end, just tell me, is there a possible next season of that show?
Well, can I first just say I
can
really
do whatever.
found it, it's kind of a surprising thing when somebody out of the blue comes to you with a part that is a really complicated character. So, he's from upstate New York. I'm from upstate New York. He loves botany. He's kind of distracted by the natural world and the specifics of Latin names and the way that blights can kind of are starting to become lurking and present. And I'm a little like that with botany and trees and everything. And also, he is, living in a town where this shocking thing happens, where this young mother with a 1-year-old child and a husband, that she's vaguely discontented with her life, but it's nothing that it's gonna throw her into jail. But then in a public place, a beach, there's people playing their music loudly on the blanket next to her, and with her child there and her husband there, and flips a switch, and she almost becomes feral and takes a small knife and manages in a very short period of time to lacerate this guy so intensively that he doesn't live. And she's pulled off, and she doesn't realize what happened. But she says, I'm guilty, and I want to go to prison. I don't want a lawyer. Ship me out. And, I think sometimes you realize that there's communities that experience trauma like the way individuals experience trauma. You get something brutal that's shocking and unpredicted about what you think humanity is all about, what your existence is all about and everything, and then you go into denial. And I think there's a way in which this small town goes into denial. They don't want to think about this too much. This is so problematic. It's just an aberrant thing. And so, ship her out. And so the small little police force is there, and the captain says, we got an open and shut case. We don't know why she did it. She didn't know why she did it, but she did it. She's out of here. And I am a kind of a little bit of an outlier in this police department, talking about trees from time to time, and with my own kind of determination, I say, no, I think we have to find a motive. And I'm going to find it. And so I don't want to go into denial. And the journey for me is like, why? What am I? And you realize that I am also living a compartmentalized life. And the right hand doesn't quite know what the left hand is doing. And I haven't negotiated the two sides very well. And I'm on thin ice about what I'm doing, trying to get back with my wife, and what I'm doing that I need the nudity clause for with the waitress in the diner. And, it was a really strong thing. I mean, there's a long period of time, 4 months or something to shoot it. And, my wife read it, because you go to a place like that, you're in that place for 4 months, and it's, I think it was something where she's, we had to kind of like say, is this going to be good to do or not, And so it took a lot to do it. And, whether it all worked out or not, it was very popular. and got it was they say it's the #1 new show on cable this year. So it would, it didn't diminish, it grew, and each, by the time it ended, it had the most. So when you have those events, no matter about whether it was, there were some really strange things that happened to me inside some of the scenes that happened, and it's in that turf where it's not a comedy, it's not Spaceballs or anything. It's just a really kind of interesting journey into human psychology with a writer, a showrunner, and directors and everything who were very interested in not like just you're a psychopath, you're killing people, we got to get the data, we'll catch you, kind of thing. This is a psychological murkiness, and everybody, all the characters and everything. So, and it's not clear what it would be if it gets picked up, because her story is kind of has a version of a wrap-up. I don't really have a wrap-up. So maybe it'll come back, I'll be a detective with some other people, or maybe it'll be, they tell me all these modalities. I don't really watch enough television to know what
Like
American horror.
American crime.
American crime, where they go a whole different way.
All right, I'm going to watch those last 3.
Right, yeah.
With my hand over my eyes. It really scared me.
Yeah.
And
Parts
so-
that I'm not in, go fast. You can fast forward through this.
Jessica. Oh, there's Bill. Jessica. So talk about Lefty Brown, the movie you're
Lefty
here
Brown, it's been a really good ride, as they say. And that is so much fun to be here with Jared Moshe, who wrote it and directed it. You're at a film festival in Woodstock, New York, where neither of us have been here at a film festival, and we had a very, it's such it's Jared's his second movie, but, big, lots of challenges to make it and to write it and to shoot it and to edit it, and he's really made it it's a very personal kind of journey for him and for me together. We went through so much to make it. We waited a year talking about the script and things all during that, and we're here with a lot of other filmmakers, that have kind of gone through similar journeys, and so it was very satisfying. Anyway, to talk to the audience after yesterday's screening and everything, and so it was supposed to be shot in New Mexico for like a year. I think Jared's first movie was in New Mexico, and that's a place you can shoot westerns, and I was fine with that. And then there was a little talk of Calgary, and then he scouted Montana, and so because lots of times they scout Montana and don't end up shooting there because they don't have a base where crew is, and you have to fly everybody in pretty much, and or put them up if they come from another part of Montana and everything. So usually the numbers don't work. But Derek fell in love with a ghost town called Bannock, which was the first territorial capital of Montana, and he scouted some ranches, and I'm on the phone with him, and I'm going, so how was it? And he goes, I think there's some good stuff in Montana, and we were in a place kind of near, I can't remember the name of it, but there's some place where they had shot some of the sequel to Lonesome Dove. And I go, wait a minute, that's near our ranch. Is it Whitehall, Montana? It was White something. I think back, I thought, is he torturing me here? He couldn't remember. And it turned out that the first 2 weeks were on a location that was 20 minutes from our place in Montana. And we were the closest ones to the set because everybody else had to stay in hotels in Ennis, and that was 40 minutes away. So it was like a dream, to wake up on a ranch where I've ridden horses, and, we have cows there. We do push cows up in the mountains at the beginning. My sister-in-law really is and my brother who's a doctor in there, but they love agriculture, and we've had this ranch. And, suddenly I'm, going from there to a set where you're just flipping back 100 years and in 20 minutes. And it was, and our youngest son is in it, and our other two children are in it. My wife is in it as an extra, and it was a perfect storm. It's a story about old codgers, and I happen to have a lot of old codgers that are friends of mine. They're all extras in it.
How cool.
And it comes to the hanging scene, and Lefty is, looking out, seeing who's seeing out here, watching the hanging, glad to be here, and it's all my friends. In wardrobe. It's surreal.
Well, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful film. I loved everything about it, and I could say a lot, but I was really curious the whole time how you brought your characters working into your creation of the character. It was so complete and so of a piece, and you inhabited it so completely.
Thank you. Well, it was always, I think back, why Jared never needed to have me do the character before the first day. It was many hours as we talked about the script, and he was so good to deal with about every molecule of it we talked about objectively, and he never once did he go, can you kind of do this as the character or something, which is common, especially insecure directors, come on, give it to me now. And but he never did. And I think I was sitting on it for quite a while, thinking about it and not really being off by myself, inhabiting it or something yet. But I have had a real love of rural America. I grew up in Western New York State, and my father was a doctor, and he put all of the four boys on farms in the summertime to make us strong for football. And he had a lot of patients that were dairy farmers and neighbors and stuff. And my older brothers did it, and when I couldn't wait till I could work on a dairy farm in the summer, that was somehow I'd gotten the poison of agriculture, or it's not a poison, but I mean infected by it or something, because it's still kind of addicted to it. But the people that you see, the ways of thinking in rural places, where you feel like there's vestiges of all the way back to Mark Twain or something, just the weird ways that words are formed and thoughts are processed, and it's so non-urban, and these times where it's gotten so fast and culture has become so homogenized, where you really, I still get stuck with this thing like, could I have to a waiter, could I have a fork? No problem. I didn't say it was a problem. I just wanted a fork. There's just like things that are just modern day, I want to shake off. And so to go into the world of Lefty Brown is to kind of try to push all those curtains away and get back and get back and back to how, and that's kind of one version of it. And then there's just the fact that there's a man who has not really been his own man, that for some reason he was a good sidekick. He could be, his idea of what was good about life was to really be appreciative of somebody else, and be like the number one cheer, the supporter of somebody, and to really love the loyalty of his friends and everything, and he assumed that he was of equal stature to all these people around him that he admired so much. And then the process of the movie is to, suddenly he's brought out from the protective umbrella of the legendary cowboy and, realize the world is different than what he thought it was, and loyalty is different than what he thought it was, and betrayal is more prevalent than he ever imagined, and in his own competencies at doing things were untested. And, it's kind of oddly like a character who's 19 and, suddenly trying to investigate all this stuff, but he's 63, So all those things, I think, went into making it, put the stakes on it for me, just in terms of wanted to get inside it and stay inside it. And I remember people saying, "You stay in character all day," and I remember thinking, I'm not even aware of that. Am I really, But then I realized, I am limping a lot.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, back there.
Hey.
Amazing performance again in Lefty Brown, and you brought such a rich and emotional life to that character. And in the Q&A after that, you had said that you might consider even returning to comedy. And one film that I think you give a brilliant comedic performance in, which is a little-known film that a lot of people don't talk about, was your performance of Daryl Zero in Jake Kasdan's Zero Effect. Phenomenal physical comedy performance, also with a rich emotional life. So my question would be, if you were going to return to comedy, what would be that element that you would look for that would go, that's the one I got to do?
God, that's I was almost going to say that because that was one of the gifts of Wyatt Earp was I'd go on the set and we'd wait and wait as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and Jake Kasdan, Larry's son, was 19 at the time, and Larry had said you could do a making of. So I talked to Jake a lot, about different things, and at the end of the movie he said, "I'm going to write a movie for you," and I thought, good. See if you can do it. I'm thinking I don't want to pressure him. And sure enough, he was 21, and I get offered this part, and it's so genius. And that was a kind of a rare gift. And I do like some of my less appreciated work. Some of the ones that Martha chose not to talk about, because they're all children. They're all my children. I love them all, But is Mr. Wrong, and that's with Ellen DeGeneres. And that movie didn't do very well, and whatever for a lot of reasons, I guess. But in my book, that was a great part to play the guy who she meets and thinks this guy is Mr. Right. He's in that long, you hear a jukebox and they pull up from the cowboy boots up the jeans and up to the buckskin jacket, and there he is, Whitman. And he's saying all the right things, and it sounds so good. And, cut to later when she's going, "You're insane." And him saying, "How much do you think I love you? Enough to break my own thumb?" Don't do it. I do it. I'll break my own finger. Yeah, I'll break my own finger right now to show you how much I don't. Get me out of here. So that's a kind of part that I would love to have coming around again.
Hi, this has been a very enjoyable morning. This has been a very enjoyable morning hearing you. But I'd like to know what mindset you had to be in to play the lover of a goat, which you did on stage.
Yes.
There's always one.
Yeah. was really, this is a great piece of literature, The Goat. Edward Albee, who, passed away this year. But for me as an actor who, started and realized, I got to go to scripts and by Samuel French, and you open up, suddenly you're reading these that have the first page about the first production of this play by this great playwright, and it's in the in the 40s or something, and you're getting all these great actors from the actors group theater or whatever, different places, and to get offered to do a new play by Edward Albee, first production, original cast, and have it be such a controversial play. It had never been tested anywhere, and it's about an architect who's turning 50, and it's his birthday, and he's married to a wonderful wife, and they have a child. And the child's gay, and they have worked that through, and they're comfortable with that. And then you realize he has a secret that he mentions at a certain point to his best friend, that he's fallen in love with a goat. And Edward Albee, man, just says, I want the first part of this play to be like a farce, because his wife starts throwing plates at him and saying very funny things and everything, and then it just descends into the darkest tragedy about the impossibility of human nature, that passion can be so inexplicable. Our motivations and everything, as much as we're processed as social beings, there's an internal chaos inside of us that can be tapped, and usually a passion that is inappropriate on all levels. I think he wanted something that was so inappropriate. This is not an affair. This is not, somebody who just watches child pornography. This is someone who is in love with a goat as well as his wife. And the twain cannot meet.
It's the typical Bill Pullman triangle.
Yes. But I so appreciate you bringing that up, because I do think it was, a chance. It felt like I couldn't believe night to night you would feel like the way I feel about my whole career, where the audiences there's a warm pool and a very cold pool. There's some people that like the sinner, and they don't like the sinner too much. And but to have them in the same room night after night of going, I hate this goat fucker.
Hi, I saw you in The Goat. So you were amazing, and it was thought-provoking, to say the least. I'm curious about how you prepare, coming from a theater background and making the transition to so little rehearsal time in film, and how do you prepare? I have a lot of questions, actually, but where did you train? How do you prepare for a film versus a play? And what about the TV? How does that differ, the process for you?
Yeah, that's, I wish it was a fast answer, but it's the quickest one maybe is that I came through, the public colleges. I went to, after I decided I wasn't going to be a carpenter, and then I got in a play with this guy in Delhi, 2-year technical college, whereas for building construction. And then I was in the Bald Soprano Ionesco play, a weird, absurdist play, and I loved it. And I thought, this is good, but I still shouldn't be doing this stuff. And then the director there said, no, you'll go to Oneonta and, get a 4-year degree. It's theater, and then you'll go get some graduate degree in theater, and then you'll come back and teach at a place like Delhi. It's a good life, Pullman. You'll like it. So no, I'm going to go to Syracuse and do urban planning. Or no, I'm going to go to Syracuse and English. You know, I was like 17 and dialing possibilities, you know. I did exactly as he said. And I didn't really realize it. I went to Oneonta, which was 20 miles away. I got a theater degree, had some really good professors, and you know, you learn a little bit of, you know, you read Richard Boleslavsky's book and the beginning acting, and I had a great teacher, Dick Siegfried, who just said, keep it simple, Pullman, just keep it simple. And I still hear him telling me that, you know. And then I went to graduate school for theater in UMass at Amherst, and after 2 years, this guy, Bill Campbell at Delhi, calls up and said, Pullman, I never did go for my graduate degree, and now they're hounding me, so I gotta go to get it, but I want to keep my job, so you gotta come back to Delhi and do this job for a year so I can get it when I come back. I did. I went back I took a leave of absence, I was in Delhi, and I did what he did, and I was like, am I pliable? Impressionable? I'm waiting for an identity, I guess. You know, which is always a side of acting, you know, where you think, maybe I don't have a sufficient enough of an identity. I'm too fluid, you know. It's crazy. How could I? But I'll do it, you know. And then I ended up, yes, you know, and he wanted me to do 2 years because it took him. He changed the deal on me, and now he said I can't do 2 years, Campbell. So I went back and finished, and then I was. But in that process, and then I taught for 2 years in Montana. Just you learn so much in those first years that you're teaching, and I really processed a lot of things about acting, and I would do crazy routines, you know, with. I did a lot about lying when I was at that stage because I really was interested in how do you get these Montana kids to really being invested in these scenes, you know, because they were doing like Plaza Suite, and what do they know about Neil Simon and, you know, wacky Jewish life in Upper West Side or something? You know, they didn't have a chance with this material, and so I do a lot of exercises where I put two people together and side coach them, you know, but I give them the umbrella, say, okay, you two used to be roommates 5 years ago, and one of you had a very nice shirt, and somewhere along that line you lost that shirt. Now 5 years later, you're meeting your roommate again, and he's wearing your shirt. And then I'd say, you know, okay, side coaching, you know, you recognize that he's wearing the shirt, but you don't want to call him out about it right away. And then to the other guy, it may be you realize that you're wearing the shirt you stole for the guy. Don't own up to it. And you'd get this most curious behavior of people would generate incredible, it was real for them. They're somehow lying about having stolen a shirt, you know, was like, and so I did a lot of things about lying, you know, that's a kind of a pejorative term, and it suggests we don't do it often. We live a lot in that realm where we have things, assumptions that we make that we aren't in touch with, you know, and I really like opposition stuff too. I like, you know, trying to seduce somebody while you're angry at them, you know, and those kind of things. And so I've always thought that period of teaching, and which I didn't do again, and I don't really have an interest in teaching now, but I learned a lot and kind of framed some things that I had been taught by other people. And it's very interesting now with my son, who's 24, and he's auditioning and doing quite well he looks so much like me, you know, at that stage of when you say, you know, go back in time to when it's like I'm going back in time, and it's odd for my wife too, who you know, goes, wow, that's from the back. Looks just like Bill. That's weird. And he's in Ballad of Lefty Brown. He plays the young cowhand who rides up and says, "There's somebody stole some things." And then he later, Jared said, "Could Bill, you know, Lewis should be in this movie." And then before you know it, he's written this part of Billy Kitchen, who's a cowhand who, you know, seems sweet and everything. And then next thing you know, they turn on Lefty, and it's my son who has the noose. Jared Maché's sense of, you know, how to keep it lively. But
Back there.
yeah.
Speaking of your son putting the noose over your head in the Ballad of Lefty Brown, yes, my favorite other movie has been The Virginian from 2000, which is also a society, a movie set in a Western society, 19th century, where you don't have law and judges. You have custom, and people have to make decisions on rough justice, and we see hangings in both movies. What's your fascination with the genre of the Western, and does it apply today? Thank you.
Yes. Well, thanks for bringing that up, because that's probably one of my more favorite experiences. I had directed it and acted in it, and it was a movie for TNT. So I always think it's a film, but then people say it's a television movie, Bill. And but it was, you know, we had, you know, for then it was an insane amount of money, and $8 million to make this movie. And it was, The Virginian is like the original creation myth of Westerns for America, you know, because up until that time when Owen Wister wrote that novel in 1903, there were just a lot of dime novels and hyperbolic tales about different, you know, buckaroos and, you know, Wild Bill and all of that. And then he wrote this romantic novel. He was trying to be like William James or something, and about a tenderfoot who comes from the east, gets off the train at Medicine Bow, Wyoming, sees a cowboy taming a horse that's in a, you know, who's so capable and everything, and he's a man with no name, is just known as the Virginian. And as he gets to know him and admire him, he realizes that the Virginian is trying to work his way up to becoming more than just a cowhand, but also has a code and is almost like a Walter Scott kind of knight of the plains. And then the schoolmarm comes from the east, and she has a civilizing force that he's in love with her, but he has to still resort to vigilante justice. And you know, John Ford said he based 5 of his movies off of aspects of the Virginian. So to me, this was like the Hamlet of Westerns. You know, this is a Rorschach test. How do you do your Hamlet? You know, what is your idea of how to do the Virginian? Because Gary Cooper did a version in 1929, and Joel McCrea did one in 46, and there was the TV series, and there was a couple of silent movies, I think, too, based on it. But for me, it was... I loved the language of the book, and I worked with Larry Gross, who's a writer, and we preserved so much of psychology is in the phrasing. You know, I just love dialogue. I love just saturating myself with the construction of words in a sentence and how that is a manifestation of something way, way back, and an urge or a thought that is pushed away, and suddenly these are the words that are describing that big thing underneath. It's like tip of the iceberg, and every word that Owen Wister wrote for the dialogue was, to me, so interesting, because he had himself been there in '85 when he was a tenderfoot looking to get a healthy thing restored for his asthmas. And then he, you know, wrote it in 1903. But so that was a big part of it. And I do think nowadays there is, and Jared and I have talked about this too, about the, you know, because you get certain people say, oh, that's a Western, and women don't like Westerns, and, you know, all of this stuff.
Oh, stop.
Well, it's, you know, it's a kind of a cliche, you know, I mean, women do like, and I think an intimate Western like this that's not, you know, about machismo upon machismo upon machismo, you know, there's a sense right now in the country that we're more divided than we've ever been. And, that's just a given. And it's getting more exacerbated and more confounding as it goes. It's almost like you go through, Elizabeth Kubler lost 7 stages of death. We're still kind of processing. We're angry, and then we're numb, and then we're just sad, and then we get active, and it's frustrating. It's like all those things we're going through now. And because we spend quite a bit of time in rural America with people who we know we can't talk politics with. And you end up speaking kind of very carefully and I think you have to kind of assume a certain amount of respect. And you can't leak any kind of disdain for certain attitudes, because it just erupts and you can destroy relationships. And I think this feels like what it's like to be in a Western, where the cowboys, there was so much violence that was underneath the surface. Everybody had guns. And the code of the West really came about because it was, there was a lot of capabilities of what could trigger somebody. And there's a great line, classic line in the Virginian, while they're playing poker, and Trampus is kind of the bad guy, and it says they're playing poker, and Trampus says something like, "I don't think so, you some bitch." And the Virginian just looks at him and said, "Smile when you call me that." And that level of like one word that you could say, if you could say that again, I don't have to pull my gun. We don't have to make this ugly, And I think sometimes I feel like I'm that. There's so many people I can't talk directly to, and it's. I think that's kind of why this right now, these Westerns are so interesting to us. Yeah.
Don't kill me, but they're giving me the sign. We have to wrap up. So I told you this would go by in a flash.
I have $5.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks so much.